Hello and welcome back to another fantastic episode of SGTV. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a little bit of a controversial point, which is the Corrigendum.
Yeah.
Now, something we don't really often see, isn't it, is people changing, or the IET changing the regulations before that due period.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen little bits when we had the Amendment 1 with the EV.
We did.
But actual changes during a process.
Yeah. Don't like it.
Don't like it. So what's the reason, Tim? What enlighten everybody to why they've done what they've done?
Yeah, generally a corrigendum is a non-preferred option. We really don't like introducing corrigendum in between amendments. However, when there are particular issues that have cropped up that can't wait, then a corrigendum is reluctantly agreed to. And so we have that situation here. There are 3 or 4 separate little things and they've just brought them together and outputted it as a single corrigendum.
So as Tim's mentioned there's 4 points to this corrigendum that we're seeing, and the first one being the SPDs, the second one to do with
birthing
pools, third one to do with protected escape routes, and the fourth one is around 710 with protected escape routes as well. So
that's it.
Just jumping back to the front there, when we talk about SPDs, what's the big change then? Because contractors' lives have changed in the sense of when they look at consumer units now in domestic, they were on the belief that they needed to fit SPDs when it comes to safety services.
That's right, and there were 3 mandated areas in which SPDs or over voltage protection had to be installed. They were to do with safety of life, to do with safety services, and to do with financial or data loss. One of those has gone. The issue around safety services has dropped away. And so the mandating of those has gone. Mm-hmm. The other 2 still remain. The rest of the regulation hasn't changed. So in the rest of the regulation, it still says they should be installed unless a customer expressly says we don't want them. So the burden is still to install them, but just they're not mandated. You must have them.
So people that are designing systems now then, Tim, they're probably their go-to before this corrigendum was to continue to fit them and fit them everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, if they own the building, so let's say that they're working for maybe a housing association or someone like that, they're still the person that's responsible, so the homeowner. So it's entirely up to them as to what they do.
Yes.
But if you are going into, say, you're a one-man band or you're a contractor that's a small contractor and you're going into domestic properties, are they seriously thinking that they're going to have these conversations with the homeowners?
You would hope so, but still the default position is that they would then install them unless. So that conversation really ought to take place. Where it doesn't, they really should do with installing them.
Okay, so just thinking, continuing with that theme there, how do you explain to a customer that they've got this device, it's going to potentially stop equipment going bang if there should be a surge of any description, or lightning stroke? How do you then tell them not to have that? I
wouldn't tell them not to have it. I would tell them they should have it, but the cost is whatever. And should you want to make the benefit that you'll make an immediate saving of 30, 40 quid, whatever the price is, against a potential loss of thousands, then you make that offer. But I mean, it seems to me a no-brainer. You would still keep installing them.
Yeah, indeed. So I think one of the takeaway points from that then is sort of contractors are going to probably continue to do it as they've been doing for the last 6 to 8 months from September, and continue to install SPDs. That's entirely up to you if you choose to do so. Absolutely. But is it a bit of a step backwards when we start to think about what we were trying to achieve with it being in there in the outset of it being a safety service? To remove that, does it feel like a bit of a backward step?
I can only speak personally. For me, it feels a wee bit of a retrograde step, but the industry clearly has gone down that route, and we are where we are.
Indeed.
But insofar as direction of travel, I suspect that won't be the last that's been heard of SPDs.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you look at the harmonised document, it doesn't really ever mention about that side of things, does it? No. So, but yeah, that's a different story. So moving on from that, then we've got protected escape routes. Now, we're quite fortunate here at Scolmore because we have someone that knows an awful lot about protected escape routes, and that's someone just there. So we got everyone. Everyone can thank Tim for what he's achieved in that, but we've had some changes again, haven't we?
We have. The issue around protected escape route is for the industry that are designing systems within, shall we say, more complicated, much more involved places where there are escape routes that would be considered to be protected, such as lobbies, stairways, corridors, and the like. Typically, they would install their main distribution down the corridors. And so the kickback, the pushback has been, this just can't work. And so there's been some tweaking to allow for corridors not to be considered in the same way as staircases, firefighters' lifts, shafts, and the rest. And so that's the tweak that's been made with regard to 422.
And it's an interesting change, just because we've been going around the country, as you know, that you've always seen us up and down the country, delivering CPD talks to consultants and the like, and none of them really made any noises that we heard of to say that they couldn't work with this. I think it's when it got down to the contractor level, when we sat there and we looked at it and we looked at maybe a block of flats, and you went, what happens then when people go in afterwards and they see above the ceiling there's no cables, and they go, great, I've got a free run here. And all of a sudden, all that hard work that's been put into a protected escape route has just completely been lost.
Indeed.
So I understand what the change is, and I understand the need for the change, because it is quite difficult to comply. It's not impossible, but it is quite difficult to step back from the corridors and just look at the lobbies and the stairwells.
Yeah. But that's where we're at now. And that would be sort of going forward. And who's to say what will change in the future? But that's where we are today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on from that as well, then we're going to be looking at birthing pools. So in 701, it was talking about...
Yeah, that's right.
701 is talking about birthing pools in there.
Yeah.
Does that really need to be in there in the first place?
Yeah. Shall we say it's always been a bit of an anomaly?
Yeah.
It was an example of, and then they've gone, actually, can we take that out? Because, you know, that is actually healthcare. That deals with something that's wholly different to somebody just having a bath.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the drive for that. It's long overdue. Long overdue.
Do you think we're going to start to see socket outlets next to birthing pools now?
They're always under control. That's the whole point of this, isn't it? And that's why the sense of removing them makes good sense.
So that's just a nice, easy, straightforward change.
Yeah.
And then we've got the protected escape routes again, as we mentioned, but in the medical locations. Now, this was causing a bit of an issue, wasn't it?
It was. For the folks in hospital design and installation, they were saying, look, we don't function the same way. We've got something called horizontal evacuation, progressive horizontal evacuation, and we need to be able to use these spaces to run cables through. And so there was shall we say, that came first. If you ask who's the chicken and the egg, well, that was the chicken that came first. We want that change, we want that adding, and so we made that change, and that's been sort of settled for a while before the Corrigendum came out. It was the later 422 that was the last change that was made. So yes, it just says to those working in medical locations, you can sort of opt out of certain aspects of the protected escape route.
Okay, so it's, again, pretty straightforward for a designer.
Yeah.
They either are or they aren't doing protected escape routes.
That's right.
Because of the process and the procedures they've got in place. So that's the Corrigendum. Hopefully that's been a bit informative for you, and we can sort of help you with understanding and digesting some of the changes, whether they're small or big on your business. Let us know. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.